Greetings, vloggers, bloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty with another edition of this week's vlog. As you can tell, it's Sunday afternoon when I'm recording this, so it'll be out Sunday evening. But why is it Sunday evening, and why am I not following a routine? Because I'm autistic and I like routine. But sometimes there's obligations in life, or we have to, or there's things that need to be done that are more important than doing the weekly vlog or writing the blog post or just doing the daily social media posts, what have you. So in the past 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago, over 2 weeks ago, my father had a severe stroke in his barn at home. And that first week, which was 2 weeks ago, I was in and out of helping my mom going back and forth to the hospital. About a week ago, he was put in the county home. And so with that, my needing to be there as much because she was able to go and see him has decreased. But in essence, when we talk about the routine, sometimes our routine is uprooted from what we are rigidly and routinely expecting to do. I was for a long time in my life, it always had to be the way it was. Things had to come at the time they were predicted. Yeah, I could go on. And I can remember even as a young boy, and I had van transportation since third grade. And if you have, if your child has issues with with the general mainstream transportation, such as bus or anything like that, and that was in that case, that was really part of the catalyst that made me end up leaving the mainstream classroom in third grade in a school that was not did not have an emotional support classroom at the time, because there wasn't autistic support back then. But because this I wasn't even diagnosed, to be honest with you, but because I had acted in a way on the school bus, the public school bus, the big school bus, that was inappropriate. We did learn, and I think that was when I first had an IEP, back when I had went to to an emotional support classroom, which ironically was a regional classroom, but was housed in a district building. Nonetheless, I wrote a little bit about some of those experiences in my blog this morning. But one of the things that was written in that IEP, and you can very well ask for this if you feel it is needed, and from where my parents live and the distance to the bus stop, not that my parents couldn't take me, um, but there were issues on the bus. And then to get to this other school in the district, which was another school on the other side of the district, you had to get out of one bus at my home school and get into another bus. And that we felt, and because we had known people in our small little community that I was born and raised in, we had friends and classmates because we pretty much all knew each other, and we still do to some degree. Um, there was this discussion where it wasn't safe to do that for me. It wouldn't work well for me. And I have to commend my mother and my father for both being the advocate. And we didn't even know nothing about IEPs back in the 90s. I mean, we we didn't even, well, there may not even been advocates. I don't know that early in the 90s. But nonetheless, from third grade the whole way to 12th grade, I had van transportation written in my IEP. Nonetheless, you had a driver for the year or a couple of years or whatever that may be. And in the whole course of what I'm saying about the rigidity is the fact that I was expected to be picked up at a certain time in the day. When that time elapsed or passed, um, I would go into a full blown meltdown, and I mean crying hysterically. Sometimes this was, in one instance, I definitely remember, because I was not as rigid. And this was because maybe another student was absent that they didn't need picked up, whatever. It became such a meltdown, and I think this was years after the van had initiated, but it was when my mother was working in a store, and I was with my grandmother at the time, or my grandparents, and I was just so, God bless them, but I was so overwhelmed because the van was 20 minutes late, and I was not given, that was how rigidity works. That's how routine works, and some things work great. I mean, eventually, eventually when the right things fall into place, they do work. And then there's the times when you realize there's eventually a point, when things like, I went to junior high and there was, ball schedules and things like that. And you have that rigidity, you have that routine, and you have that schedule. But then, and I went to residential and there was a schedule, but that wasn't always, perfect. And I think some what I learned, you had to go with the flow because you weren't always guaranteed things when, other residents would act out, or there'd be issues or staffing issues, or no money, or just no activity money. It could be a myriad of things, but eventually being more flexible as time went on allowed me to be more flexible. And even, being that in life, getting out of high school, graduating, doing things just as life full on, even though it had some routine to it, um, really molded me more to be able to be flexible. Now we get into independence, adulthood. I go through this phase, of course, from about a few months ago, I don't know, however many months ago, from last year until the last 5 years before that, where I was not medicating. And I don't want to say that I was flexible, but yet I was so self-centered that I didn't want to do things. And even so, before that, before I became independent, when my grandparents were living, because they did not have technology or they did not have Wi-Fi, I really didn't want to see them, and it was really hard. And sometimes you feel regret about that, about not taking that time out. And I think with everything that has happened with my father in the past 2 weeks, and granted, um, I did not have, I have not always had the most perfect relationship with my father in my life, my nearly 4 decades of living. But, there is something. He has always been there for me, no matter what I need. And he does care. And sometimes it's hard to believe that. It was always hard to see through the smoke and mirrors of my life, my frustrations with that was living with them, and then being independent and not getting my life grounded, that I couldn't see the love and care that he had. And I think even more in this past 2 weeks, I have probably shown 20 years of caring that I should have had, in the past 2 weeks. And realizing also that while we are all built differently in our minds or what have you, that he shows he showed his love in different ways that I may have not realized or I may not have seen. One instance my mother brought up that was very something I probably didn't even know as a child was, he spent money to make sure we had 4-H projects, but there may not have been enough food on the table for us to eat, or we may have had to cut back on our meal eating because he wanted to make sure we had money for 4-H projects and to be able to show our animals at the fair, because he wanted that maybe as a child, or maybe he just wanted us to do something to better ourselves. And maybe that is because he wanted us to do something to be proud of. And I'm not saying that in a way that, I'm sure he is proud of me, and I know for a fact he is. My mother had said he has talked about my blog, and he has talked about all the work I put online, and he always tells his friends about it. But, when you get to that point where you realize how much love is shown, you do what you need. I do what I need to do to make sure that I'm showing my love and affection towards those that I love and doing those things that I need to do in life that are more important than focusing on things that I want to do for my personal self. Now, granted, this is different from a point where you know you need self-care or you need to take care of your mental health. There is a point when I know when my mental health is okay and I need to do these things that are like obligations, like cleaning my apartment or buying groceries or going to church. And I had stayed away from church for a long time, and I had gotten really off the path with a lot of things with my faith, and I had really went down a very strange path the last prior to the last maybe it's been a long time, but I'm starting to get on the correct path and realizing what I believe in myself, what I truly and honestly believe in, not what somebody's peer pressuring me into or coddling me into because that's what they think I want. Maybe understanding what I want and what is right and what is wrong, what I believe totally. And, sometimes you have to take time away from the digital world or things that you attach yourself to in the modern world to understand what you need to do for you. Now, I did, spend a good deal this weekend with my family, and I have spent a lot of time with my family the last few weeks, but that's what I do. I have estranged myself so much the past 4 or 5 years of being unwell from my family that I'm now repaying that debt. And it's really, I don't get mad anymore when I used to get so frustrated when I would have to do things that, I wouldn't I that I knew I was maybe obligated to do, or maybe it was because I was in this situation, or maybe because I wanted people to do what I wanted to do. But I'm starting to more think of others in that way. One of those instances I can think of where I would get real irritated was probably, I don't know if it was last year or it was maybe a few years ago. I don't remember, but we had all been in. This was when my doctor, my primary care doctor, was located in a different town, about a little distance away, and we had all went. At that time, those few years when they had to be in a different county, we would all go as a family to that appointment, to our appointments. And I remember on the trip back that I think my parents wanted to go to the home improvement store to look for stuff. And I became frustrated because I could not go home or I could not go where I wanted to go. And I remember just being so irritable and so miserable and so negative because I didn't get what I wanted. And I think eventually towards the end of that trip, and I think heading into my towards home, they did stop for me to get a sandwich and get some food because somehow they thought I deserved it, but whatever. But eventually you learn that not everything in the world is important, and that and then while you must maintain your own mental wellness and your own physical state, that there are more important things than what you may consider to be important just for you or keep to yourself or what have you. So, I'm starting to realize more and more that, you know, sometimes you have to do what is needed, regardless of what you may want to do. It's not that it's painful, it's not that it's irritating, it's just life. And I'm not selfish, and you know, I'm not over really, you know, I'm not being, sympathetic or, being irritable about it. I'm just realizing there are parts of life that you have to do. There are things in life you have to do. Let's look at like a few weeks ago, going to my niece's chorus concert. Never been to one. She's in middle school. Never been to the middle school. I was in a different district. different county, whole thing. Never been in my life. And I think, a lot of times we can say what we want, but and maybe it was scary for COVID, but that's beside the point. But it was a lot of fear mongering that was occurring that you couldn't, and there were restrictions granted, but there was also this preconceived fear and regression during COVID that has made it hard for me to go back into doing things as a family unit or with family or being there for family. And I have to honestly say, in the past 2 to 3 weeks, I have been more with family than sometimes being with myself. And I'm realizing more and more that even though I may not have real friends in life or, anything, that I'm grateful for my family and that I need to be, there and for them when I can be and, loving and caring when I can be. It's very important for that. And it can be hard to see that. It's just not, I don't know. It's just this piece that, I understand now that, sometimes you have to put things aside and that you want to do as a person and not be selfish and self-centered. And I know as a person with being autistic that can be hard to do at times. And it was a very challenging path, and I was on a very rich path. But now I've gathered myself together and I've started the trend of taking care of putting life's priorities before my own. And it's different from the hierarchy of needs, because there are needs that need to be met, but my needs may at that given moment are very little in nature compared to doing things that life obligates us to do. So, that's just my feeling on it, and I just thought I would share with you over these few minutes about what that was about, and that's been on my mind, and I've just been praying about what to share with you. I have lots of ideas, and what to share on my vlog this week, but that has really been one that I've really been thinking about, maybe just because it's Sunday afternoon when I'm recording this, and I'm just thinking, well, it's not a routine, and a lot of autistic people are very rigid. They stick with their routines, but here we are. So with that being said, I want to thank you for listening. I appreciate all the new followers. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Pinterest. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the web. That handle is DustinsDynastyUSA.com. And I'm on Linktree. All my links are on Linktree. That handle is linktr.ee/Dustin's Dynasty. And we'll talk to you soon. Let's try to have a good week this week. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and stay safe out there. We'll talk at you soon. Bye for now.